Hi, I'm Gerry Lantaigne, and I am the artist that was hired by the Huntsville Festival of the Arts to do a really awesome project this year. And it was to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Group of Seven, the original Group of Seven members. And 2020 is the 100th anniversary of their first art exhibition and a group as a show. And Dan Watson from the Huntsville Festival of the Arts came up with this awesome idea to paint 7 canoes, one for each original member of the Group of Seven. That created a bit of a challenge though, because canoes are long like this, and most of the Group of Seven works are in a 4x5 size range format, almost square. So what I decided to do, and I usually picked one side of the canoe to start on, and I would center the picture of the artist in about the middle, and then ad lib on the sides and move it out in both directions on the sides, and then do the other side of the canoe. So I'd work in stages in the drawings, so each side of the canoe is different from the other side of the canoe, and sometimes one side might be better than the other because I was really getting the swing of things on the other side. Anyway, this is a piece, it's my interpretation of J.E.H. MacDonald's painting, and it's called North Country near Burke's Falls, which is over there somewhere. But this is a beautiful little piece, and it's funny because, I have, looked at a lot of Group of Seven works over my lifetime as an artist, and I had yet to see this particular version. I found it online. I've never seen it in a book or a print, and it is called North Country near Burke's Falls, which is pretty cool because that's extremely local to us here in Huntsville and the Huntsville Festival of the Arts. And I can move on to the next canoe, which is right over here. And this canoe is an interpretation of a painting by Frank Johnston, or Franz Johnston as he became to be known. He is, again, one of the original members of the Group of Seven, but strangely enough, he was the first and only member of the Group of Seven to actually quit. When the Group of Seven started in the early 1900s, so 1920 was their first show, they got such bad publicity and press and bad reviews, and it really was potentially going to damage their career as artists. So Frank Johnston, who painted this particular painting in about this area here, is about his original painting. And he left the group, but he is an original member, and they've always considered his work as part of the Group of Seven masterpieces. Now, this painting I also found online because I had never ever seen it before, and this is the only painting I've done that I have no idea what the actual title is. I don't know what the title is. And if someone does know, because I've never seen this painting in a book or that one, but at least we know the title of that one. But let us know at the Huntsville Festival of the Arts. This particular canoe is a reproduction of a very famous painting by Lawren S. Harris. And he is one of the they all were founding members, but he's one of the founders of the Group of Seven. Very interesting man, Mr. Harris. This is his painting, or my version of it, I should say, Baffin Island. And one thing I will point out, when we did these paintings, really interestingly enough, we actually used marine grade paint. So we used boat paint. We talked to our local favorite canoe specialist that we know, John Gall from Johnny's Boat Shop, and he helped us out and got the paints for us. And he had said that no one really uses them like this. So this is the first time, as far as they know, that anyone's actually kind of done artwork with their marine paint. It was limited in colors, so I wasn't able to get the kind of vibrant colors that I could get with artist colors because they just don't have the same kind of reds, blues, and yellows to work with. So I was limited on my palette, which, I wasn't able to nail the paintings perfectly, so that gave me a little bit of artistic freedom, which I actually enjoyed, because I was able to move the paint much more fluid and much more better than when I normally do any kind of reproduction work. But yes, a lot of people came by and were really fascinated with this. This is the first one we did, and it's a Lawren Harris painting, and it's such an iconic image, like everybody really loves it. So, yeah. This canoe is a reproduction of an awesome painting by another original member of the Group of Seven, Franklin Carmichael. he was a master of watercolor works, and this painting is originally a watercolor. So my version is not a watercolor version. It's actually, again, as we spoke about earlier, it's a marine grade paint, which was an oil paint, interestingly enough. And again, you can see the wonderful Huntsville Festival of the Arts was the sponsor of this whole awesome project. And this particular painting by Mr. Carmichael is called Mirror Lake. And if you go along it this way, you'll see that he painted these great grand images and then reflected them in the water. It was a challenge to do this painting. There's a lot of smaller details in it, all the little wisps of color and stuff like that. The other thing about the marine paint, which is also interesting, is it dries super fast. Even though it's an oil paint, it dries like fast. So you have a small amount of time to work with, which also, I had these big cans of paint, so I couldn't pour out big gobs of it because I'd waste it when it all dry. So I had to use little tiny bits of paint at a time. And then we started to use something called a varnish, like a spar varnish, which is a see-through paint, a clear coat. And we mixed that into the paints, and that helped it move along even nicer. So I got these really beautiful fluid flowing lines by using that technique of adding in a clear coat, which actually gave a little bit more length to the dry time of some of the paint. And then we were able to do really cool stuff like put a base color in and then come back afterwards and tweak it by adding a little high red of a glaze or just different kind of glazes to really push the colors up and around. This was a fun painting. Took a long time to do this one. This one took the most amount of time of all of them. Most of the paintings I was able to do in about 3 days, 3 working days. But this one, we ran into weather problems near the end of the summer and we didn't have enough time to complete it. But even that, that being said, I probably put way more hours in this one, maybe 4 or 5 days in this one as opposed to the other ones. There's a lot of neat detail. So I like this one too. Okay, this is, again, my version of an iconic painting by A.Y. Jackson, who is really one of the fun members of the Group of Seven. And this is called Night Pine Island. And this is when I first started to use the glaze, and you can see in the sky when I use the glaze, it really picks up. Because what I did was I had first a sort of a dark blue color down, and then I came in afterwards with these light wispy blues and popped and picked it all up afterwards. And also another technique I was able to figure out by using this paint, because it was drying so fast, I put all these base tones in. So when you first, if you had come by this painting when I first made it, all these rocks were super bright orange and this water was super black and it looked really bizarre. But what I wanted to do was capture, I don't know if you can see this, but see all the little bits of orange that still show through the paint? That's kind of the technique that I was trying to imitate of the artist that made this, A.Y. Jackson, because he kind of sort of dry brushed or scrubbed his paint or pushed it across the canvas and had this really interesting technique to it. So I was actually using the paint when it was almost dry sometimes too. And you can see because I was scraping it across, so not all the paint came off the brush, and it just made this nice draggy effect where you still get some of the background paint showing through, which is exactly what I was trying to do. Oh, and with the water, so you can see there's reflections of stars in the water. And the same thing, this was all pitch black water, and it looked really weird, but I started dragging the super dark blue down it in the same process with kind of almost a dry brush, and it just made these beautiful blues, like the original painting almost, and these highlights of where the stars are and stuff like that, but letting the black of the water really come through, so you get that depth in the water. Yeah, this is a marvelous painting by A.Y. Jackson. I stretched it out really, really far. This canoe is by Arthur Lismer. Whoa, wait a minute. No, this canoe is by me. But the painting is a reproduction of 2 of Arthur Lismer's paintings. Of course, Arthur Lismer, one of the original members of the Group of Seven, and a friend of Tom Thompson's, although Tom was not a member of the Group of Seven because he passed away before they actually became the Group of Seven. He died in 1917, and they didn't have their first show until 1920, but he really did inspire them. And in fact, this particular painting is a painting that he did in Algonquin Park, and I wouldn't doubt if he was on the same camping trip or probably sitting beside Tom Thompson the day he painted this one, because it's very much in the style of Tom Thompson's paintings. And it was done early, this version of this Algonquin Park scene. Beautiful, but very, very indicative of Tom Thompson's style in terms of these, beautiful brush strokes and hit quicks and nice hit quicks. Now, Arthur Lismer ended up moving away from that sort of choppy kind of painting and ended up developing his own style. So I combined this other painting down here. This is a piece of a shoreline of a iconic painting by Arthur Lismer of Georgian Bay. Now, they had a friend on Georgian Bay, and they always went to this guy's cottage. His name is Dr. McCallum, and they always hung out there. Well, not always, but they were invited up in the summer times, and they did a lot of painting there. So when I first started this canoe, I wasn't sure which painting I was going to do first, or which painting I was even going to do. And I was wondering, how am I going to do? Oh, how am I going to put this painting on here? Because it's such a long, long thing, and the painting's this wide. So when I came down the street, I saw a reflection, and I saw exactly this reflection coming off the road. And I went, oh my God, it looks like the trees in this painting, and that's perfect. So then I knew exactly how to paint the painting, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to put the other painting in. So I got two Arthur Lismer paintings in one here, and I've added his Georgian Bay trees and rock painting as an iconic bookend to this particular canoe. Arthur Lismer, solid guy. Now this canoe is by Frederick Varley. Well, again, I did it again. This canoe is by me, but it's a version of Frederick Varley, one of his paintings of Georgian Bay. As I said, they spent a lot of time in Georgian Bay doing painting because they had a patron there who was Dr. McCallum, and he had a cottage on Go Home Bay. So this is more than likely right in that immediate area of the Go Home Bay. What a beautiful, beautiful sunset. Really striking colors. I did my best to match up the colors. Now, when I picked this particular painting, and if you recall earlier, I mentioned that I didn't have the same kind of colors available in the boat paint, in the canoe paint, marine grade paints. So I looked for colors that were similar to the ones I had, and I found this particular painting. I thought, perfect, this is perfect. So this, too, is a very early painting by Frederick Varley. And again, this is extremely influenced by Tom Thompson's style. Now, everybody had met Tom. They all worked with Tom. Most of them had worked with Tom, but they'd all at least painted with him, and most of them had gone into Algonquin Park and worked with him in Algonquin Park. And so there's a good chance that Tom was here this week when they painted this painting on Georgian Bay. Beautiful screaming sunset. You got these beautiful oranges that change into these greens and fade off into the darkness of night up here, which is kind of really nice. And it's augmented by the silhouettes of the iconic Canadian pine trees that sort of became a fixture of the Group of Seven work. Now, the other interesting thing about this painting is I finally figured out a way on this project to include Tom Thompson. Now, he was not an original member of the Group of Seven and had passed away prior to them doing any shows. So he didn't get a canoe. So we have 7 canoes, but he doesn't get one. But when Mr. Varley was hanging out in Georgian Bay with Tom one afternoon, he painted Tom Thompson on the rocks. So this is a portion of a painting, and it's very similar in this area here. And he didn't have any detail in the face, so I didn't put any detail in the face. So I tried to make it look very similar to Mr. Varley's painting of Tom Thompson. So we included Tom in the project after all. So this is it, and it's another painting by Varley, and it's about Varley's painting's about that big, the one of Tom, sitting on the rocks in Georgian Bay, almost probably in the exact same area when he was painting this painting, maybe the same afternoon or maybe the same weekend or a couple of months later. So wish I knew.